Hi, my name is Miguel, and you're probably using the set position node wrong. This is what I mean. Okay, first and foremost, I am not a Blender expert whatsoever. I have lots of experience in Blender, but at the same time, this tutorial isn't aimed for the beginner. You have to know at least a little bit about geometry nodes and Blender in general. Well, let's talk about it. These two cubes have geometry nodes applied to them. First, let's examine the ordinary way that you would use the set position node, and it's with translate. It's just an ordinary noise texture, and it has the scene time plugged in to the seed, so it can move like this. Alright, nothing fancy, nothing too fancy. Now everybody knows why we subtract 0.5 from the x, y, and z of this node, because geometry nodes being geometry nodes. And lastly, we have a scale node here, which is just a vector math node to change how much it deforms. Alright, now toggle out of the group, and then it's plugged into the set position. Pretty easy. This is just for the text above, and so that it floats. Now you might be wondering why I named the right one translate and the left one rotate. Well, because the cube with translate on top of it is normal, and of course it's the traditional way of using set position. Like this is pretty normal, and you will find this in almost any tutorial that uses set position. Rotate does something quite different, and I'd like to share this technique with you all because I've never quite seen this technique applied to set position node, and it's utilizing vector rotate. So we have the same node group here that we have with the other cube, and it's the set position, but instead of plugging it directly into the offset like so, and then we would have the same effect, we plugged it into a vector rotate node, and the type is set to Euler, and this node is connected to our position. Well, why, you might ask? Because, well, this is actually how you rotate things using set position. First, you have to get your position node and plug it into the vector rotates vector, this one, and then you can rotate it. Yeah, that's how you rotate things. And of course, you could do crazy stuff with this, like let's say random value vector, and then let's drive the seed with time info, and then it's doing something. Well, with this setup, it's almost like animating a cube, let's say, and with its rotations, and then adding a noise modifier, setting the strength really high, and then copying this and pasting this into another curve. Now you have an animation that's pretty random. But if you want to change the scaling, let's say you have to go in each and every channel, and then it's a hassle. This is a hassle. We don't want this. We are efficient people here. We don't want this. And then you ask, what's so special about having to rotate things in geometry nodes? Well, if you, let's say, get the position. Oh, we have a position right here. And then let's separate its x, y, and z. And then we have the z. And then we have a combine. So essentially what we have here is we're sort of like replicating simple deform modifier in Blender. I see that. Delete the geometry nodes. Add simple deform. Where is it? 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 There it is. Okay, simple deform, but it's complicated here. I mean, it's probably easier depending on who you're asking, but you need to have like a separate empty, and then the origin has to be like the empty. So we have our center, and then we rotate by that, and then I want to bend it on my X. Let's make it like what we have with our rotate, like that, and boom, basically the same. And yeah, that's what makes it important, because you have granular control with each and every vertex or point in your mesh. So let's plug our noise into the vector rotate now, instead of just the set positions offset. Boom. And the effect is, I would say, more appealing than just the standard approach, which is like you get this blobby and squishy mesh. Versus rotate, you get wavy like movement, and it's so mesmerizing. Because, well, imagine if you have a chain, right? And this is the pivot of your chain, and you have like a ball here. Now imagine just whipping your chain, right? and there's a little bit of offset here, and that's what it's like to have your rotations. It's very wavy and very nice. All right, so now we've established that it's wavier and way cooler than just the traditional approach. This doesn't mean that it's good for waves. As funny as that sounds, it's true. Let's see here. All right, so I have a plane, the same nodes and same modifiers applied, but the difference is it's just a grid, a plane with subdivisions. Now, as you can see, well, it is kind of crazy. It looks more like cloth moving in the air rather than waves in water. So let me show you what I mean. The reason why the movement is so crazy in its outer area, because we're rotating from the center, and I can show you that by moving the center. If we move the center to its negative axis, which is over here, then this part of the mesh won't be as crazy as like the rest, and the result is you have something that's akin to cloth rather than waves. And like, if you want to scale this up, you can't. It's not ideal to scale this up if you want to make waves, because if we do, then it gets really crazy in its outer areas, like that crazy. It makes much more sense if you want to do it just the traditional way, and then you have waves. And now you're probably like, what's the point of even showing me this? Now that you've shown it's not even viable for like waves, what's the flexibility? Well, so what we have here is a grid. Well, I subdivided this in geometry nodes, and after I subdivided it, I put instances on each and every point. After I did that, subdivide, mesh the points, and then instance on points. The instances are just Suzanne's. A Suzanne. Very cute. Hi, Suzanne. Say hi to Suzanne for me. Hi, Suzanne. Anyway, after plugging in our instances, I'm gonna have to capture attribute. Why? Because if I don't, then set position won't work, and the vector rotate in it won't work, because the center will be the center of the monkeys, the Suzannes, and we don't want that. We want each and every center to rotate in its own center. That's why we use the capture attribute. Now we have, once we plug our instances in our capture attribute, we have the geometry. Yes, set it to vector and set it to instance, and we capture every point of it, because we have captured the position of each instance in its place, and that's vital to find. Now you could always move the capture attribute to before the mesh to points, but for readability, let's stick with this. Now that we have the position of each and every Suzanne, we can now rotate it by its own center. There we go. And using the same setup from a while ago, that's the only difference here. We just added the center. Alright, and now you're probably asking, what about the traditional approach? Well, what's wrong with just using set position for our instances? Why can't we do that? Well, I see this a lot, and I use this technique a lot when I'm adding, let's say, fake wind to my instances, and let's say I have an instance of grass blades, and I want to make the scene alive, like in this Blender scene that I did for a client. Well, with that approach, it's not very clear unless you come in to the individual instances, but if you do it the traditional way, like we have here, you get this result, and I don't think it's very appealing. It looks like a bunch of chains that are connected. Yes, connected. Yes, they are connected, but they do not look very sexy. They do not look as sexy as the rotate. And now you're saying, hey, I do want to use the traditional approach because, like grass, it is connected, Miguel. And you are wrong. And I could be wrong here. All I'm saying is that there are two very different approaches to this, and it depends on what project you're making. Like, look, if you want the bendy and gooey stuff, like we did here, you can use this approach that I showed in the video. You can also use this approach and it's not wrong. Like, it just depends on what you're doing with it, and it looks very connected. They look like family. And that's pretty much it. There are many ways to do something in Blender. I'm hoping with this video that I could have shown you a technique that you could apply to make your projects a little bit more faux, a little bit, maybe a little cooler. This is my first ever YouTube tutorial, really full, and I like for you guys to make any suggestions if I'm going too fast or I'm going too slow or it's just the boring topic. I would like to make tutorials that can help people. Thank you.